It's August 3rd and I'm filming my wrap up. Who am I? What's going on? Now the question is, when will this go up? That's the true question. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we are going to be talking about all the books that I read for the month of July, so let's just jump right in. I got a whopping 9 books in for the month of July, which little by little I am getting back to my normal reading speed, reading mojo, reading whatever you want to call it. We had a couple rough months there, but it looks like I'm getting there. To kick July off with, I started off with a graphic novel from NetGalley, and that was Beach Nightmare by Steve Fox and Alan Brown as the illustrator. I had such a great time with this one. Here we are following a girl and she loses her phone at the beach. Somehow she's able to get her phone back, but weird things start happening afterwards. We got ghosts, we have a great father-daughter relationship, but it's a graphic novel, so it's really short and I won't say anything else about it. But it was a great read. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Be on the lookout for this. I recommend it if you just love a good, fast ghost kind of story. Next up, I finally read The Girl from Whittle Hills. I did receive this arc a couple months ago, but I didn't get to it on time because story of my life. This is the first time that I'm a little bit disappointed by a Megan Miranda book, but not enough to dislike the book. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. To me, what I love about Megan Miranda and most of her books is the suspenseful aspect that it has. She has very atmospheric books that I just love, that are just gripping, and I feel like this one lacked a little bit in the suspense aspect of it. The ending was a little bit eh. Here we follow a girl and she is kind of famous in her town. She was sleepwalking one night and she ends up being run off by this heavy storm that there was. Finally, the girl is found alive and she's like holding on for dear life in a storm drain, and she goes on to live her life, but she wants to get away from the press and the news and this story that has followed her entire life. She moves, she dyes her hair, she changes her name. Stuff happens and she starts sleepwalking again as an adult, and one day she wakes up and she has a dead man at her feet. So the story develops from there. I was expecting something different from this. The premise sounded so good, but again, like I said earlier, it was just lacking something. It was lacking that Megan Miranda stamp, in my opinion. But either way, I did enjoy it, and like I said, I did give this one 3 stars. Next up, I read The Ancestor by Danielle Trussoni. This was just a book that I was really looking forward to. I heard some great reviews from a couple of friends, and I mean, it is set in the Alps, and it is about an Italian family, and I'm like, I'm there, I'm Italian, let me get this book. First off, I want to thank the author for sending this my way. I had commented on Sadie's review or post how much I was looking forward to this, and she contacted me and sent me this book for review, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Here we follow Alberta, and she gets a letter, or she gets communication that she has inherited this title, the Count Alberta of Montebianco, and she has also inherited this castle in Italy. So she's all about it. She ends up going to this castle, and things are a little bit darker than they seem. There are family secrets, family lies. This book is super atmospheric, so in that way it's kind of a little bit slow, and you're just following Alberta as she's just uncovering all these dark secrets. My favorite part about this book was the memoirs of Eleanor Montebianco. Eleanor and her storyline of the past and of this dark secret that she holds on to is just so gripping and entertaining. It was my favorite part. I loved reading about her her fight against her maternal instincts because she ends up having a baby and there's secrets behind that. I found that part so gripping, and I wish I would have had more of that. I feel like I ended up with some unanswered questions though, and I don't know if it's just that I missed something along the way, but I feel like there was a lot of loose ends. But again, even with that, it was a very enjoyable read. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next book that I read was Dust, and this is the 3rd book in the splatter western series. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about these splatter westerns, but I am not tired about reading them, and it is part of my wrap up, so I gotta talk about them. Dust was written by Chris Miller, and there are a couple of Easter eggs from book 2 in here, but they are totally different storylines. I keep enjoying these books. I will agree that this one was probably my least favorite out of all the books that I have read already, out of the 3 books that I have read, but it totally does not mean that I did not. I mean, I loved this book. I do have a vlog where I talk about this book. It's the Horror in 24 week 1 vlog. So I won't talk too much about this, but we are just following 2 characters and they are trying to make it to the town of Dust. It's kind of a hidden town, so there's like a certain way to get to it. But either way, one of the characters is trying to make it to this town with not such good intentions, and then we have James D, which is our main badass character. He's trying to make it there to stop this one character. I can't remember this character's name, but there's a whole slew of fighting and guts and gore because this is splatter western, and I just loved it. There were some complaints in this book that there is a lack of character development, and this isn't a perfect book, but I think I go into these books more for the gore and the splatter aspect of it, and that's just what keeps me entertained. But I can see how I would want more of James D, which is the main character, and I can see how a lot of people would feel that there is a lack of character development in this one. So if you want to see more of my thoughts and when I read that book, I will link the vlog up above, but I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was great. Next up, I read the group book for the Horror in 24, and that was Survivor Song. This was a most anticipated read for me. I have 2 live shows talking about it, so I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm just going to say that I was a little bit disappointed. I ended up giving this one 2.5, and I rounded it up for Goodreads, which is 3 stars. But here we are following Natalie and Ram's Ramola, and we are living in a world where we have rabies, like a really bad rabies flu-like virus or disease spreading around, and Natalie, who is pregnant, gets bitten, and it's just a story of Ramola and Natalie trying to make it to a clinic. There is a vaccine, so they're trying to get her quickly to the clinic to get the vaccine, but there's a certain amount of time that she has to make it there in order for the vaccine to work. So it's just a story of them being on the road trying to get Natalie to a clinic. A lot of people love this book. A lot of people are just head over heels over this book, and I think although everybody in the 2 live shows that I talked to were disappointed by it, there is a grand amount of people that really love this book. So I would never say don't read it, or just because I rated it low, I don't recommend it. I recommend you read each and every book. Even if somebody rates something 1 star, it might be a 5-star read for you. So read all the books. But this one for me just fell a little bit short. One thing that I will say that I did say in the live shows, but I like to say this because this is my second Paul Tremblay book, and in the first book I loved the whole entire book until the end. The end just killed it for me. But I did enjoy the book, and the ending left me a little bit like deflated, but still I enjoyed it. With this one, it was quite the opposite. I didn't enjoy the whole book. And I don't like saying that I didn't enjoy it, because I did. There's aspects of it that I like. But it was just a little boring for me, but I liked the ending of the book. I was almost giving up on Paul Tremblay throughout this whole book, but I think I'm still going to continue to read his books because there's always something that I like about it. So it wasn't a lose all the way. Next up, I read The Hunger by Amakatsu. This was also for the Horror in 24. I think the rest of the books that I'm talking about now are for the Horror in 24 or wrapping up the Horror in 24. I finally read an Amakatsu book. This is just, I've been wanting to read her work for a really long time now. I finally got there. This is like a horror historical fiction. We are following the Donner Party. So this is like a retelling of the Donner Party and all the happenings behind that, traveling through the trail. Again, this is another one that I have in a vlog, so I'll just leave that linked so you can go see my reactions and my thoughts throughout reading it. I really liked it. It was entertaining. It had some creepy scenes. I remember a little bit through reading it because I listened to this on audiobook. The narrator got so creepy, and I do listen to my audiobooks really late into the night in the dark while I'm playing video games and my husband is sleeping, and her voice got so creepy that I was like, oh my gosh, I had to shut it off for the night. Like I said, the Donner Party, various families that are traveling, and I think they're trying to make it to California. I always forget to check, but I think they're traveling to California. There's a lot of personalities involved. There's a lot of the people don't like George Donner, which is the main character, or the main family of this traveling group, and he just has money. His party is the biggest in the group, and he's like bossy, and people just don't get along with him. But there's also, so there's strife there, and then there's also something evil following them. Their rations are getting low, so it's all of these things accumulating into this group of people, and they're just like running scared, and it was a grand old time. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I am hot. I am sweating. Whew. I don't know why I'm so hot. Maybe it's because I'm excited because I'm doing my wrap up so early. Oh man. Next up, my favorite read of the month, I think, Kill Creek. Yeah, this was one of those DNF books. I feel like I have to keep saying this. It wasn't a DNF because I wasn't liking it. It was a DNF because something else more shiny crept along the way, and I stopped reading it. The first time I stopped reading it, I was 50 pages in, and so I ended up starting the book again for this readathon. I think this was like 2 years ago maybe that I started this book and never finished it, and I am kicking myself on the behind because wow, what I have deprived myself of since putting this book down. This was phenomenal. I loved it. It was creepy. Everything just flew. Everything flowed just perfectly. I love the characters, even the unlikable characters. I loved each character played such a what's the word that I'm looking for? An intricate part in the story. Is that what I'm trying to say? Maybe. It sounds good, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Here we're following that was said right, but it sounded wrong in my head. Starting again. Here we are now that one was wrong. Here we are following 4 authors, and they get invited to this house that has a history. It's like a famous haunted house. You learn the history from the beginning before we meet the characters. And then we go into the characters being invited. Each one of these characters think that they're going there by themselves to be interviewed and that they leave. But when they get there, they see the other authors there, and the story develops from there. I don't like haunted house stories. I think I've said this before, but funnily enough, I don't like haunted house stories, but so far, 2 of my most favorite books are haunted house stories. The Nightmare Room, I adore that book. That is my #1 book when it comes to haunted house, and now this one. So that just goes to show you, even though you think you're not gonna like something, just give it a try because you might end up loving it. This was a 5-star read to me. I'm so happy that I finally got to read it and that I am just another one of those people that love this book. Did that make sense? I feel like it doesn't. Or I feel like it didn't. But maybe it did. I don't know. Next, I read The House That Fell from the Sky by Patrick Delaney. I can't get this. I can't get this right. Speak, words, talk. Next, I read The House That Fell from the Sky by Patrick Delaney. I had actually received an e-arc from this from NetGalley, but then it became a Nightworms book party, which was even better. So I got to read this with the whole Nightworms team. I love reading books with them. I don't know if I said this, but I love reading books with them. Oh, Dust was also a Nightworms book party. I don't know if I said that. I probably didn't. Oh my gosh, I was disappointed with this book. I was really looking forward to it, but it wasn't for me. I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. The premise to this just sounds so amazing and it had so much potential, but this easily could have been 100, 150, maybe 200 pages shorter. Some of my fellow Nightworms feel the same way. It was just an over explanation of things. Let me tell you what this is about. This follows this group of, I want to say kids because they sounded like kids in the story, but a group of friends, they're adults, and one day one of them is just sitting at home chilling and there is like this power outage and this loud boom and these noises, and lo and behold, this house appears in the middle of 7th Street. And so nobody knows what's up with this house. They have it blocked off. Finally, this big corporation buys it and sells lottery tickets for people to go in there. Whoever wins gets to go in there and gets to bring a guest. And so, story goes from there. Like I said, I wanted to say kids because these 4 people sounded like teenagers. I feel like when we finally get into the house, it's not what I expected, and it was almost like washed over in a way from what I thought it was. It had so much potential, and I really hate talking about somebody's work in a bad way. I get like hesitant to do it because for somebody to, I mean, somebody wrote this book, somebody wrote Survivor, so I'm like, I can't even write a sentence. I can't even speak for that matter. So when somebody writes a book, it's like such an accomplishment that, wow, that's so fantastic. But you know what? Not every story is going to work for everybody. There were people in the group that loved this, and then there were people that really didn't. For me, it was a letdown. But again, read it and find out for yourself. I always say that. So yeah, 2.5 stars. I love the cover to this though. And I just thought I was going to get more. I don't know. That's it. And the last and final book, I closed out my month very well. I read Mexican Gothic. I loved this so much. It was such an atmospheric read. It was just so gloomy and creepy and just wonderful. I too have this in a reading vlog. It's not up yet. It will be going up. I think I read it for week 3, which again is not up. But so here we follow Noemi, and her dad tasks her with going to El Triunfo, to High Place. El Triunfo is the city, and High Place is the mansion that she's going to, because they receive a letter from her cousin Catalina, and she just sounds kind of weird in this letter. She's talking about somebody wanting to poison her and hearing voices from the walls, and so Noemi really doesn't want to go. She's like this socialite with money. All she thinks about is like partying and men, and you know. And her dad tells her, listen, you need to do this, and if you do this, I will let you go to this school that she's wanting to go to. So she's like, fine. She ends up going. Her and Catalina were actually raised in the same household. Catalina has had many traumas in her life. So she's like, you know what? She goes. But when she gets there, this house is like on a mining area, on mining grounds, and the mine closed when the revolution happened. They have like barely electricity. The house is gloomy. Everything is old. It hasn't been kept up well. And the family there is kind of weird. So we're following that storyline and just Noemi trying to find out what is going on with her cousin. What is the story? This story takes a really weird turn, and while I was reading it, I remember saying like, really, this is where we're going with this story? But somehow towards the end, it just works. It didn't work for some people. I know I was watching my friend Gwen's wrap up, and she really wasn't having the story, which is understandable because I felt that way. But somehow, I don't know if it was the atmosphericness of the book or just I really liked Noemi's character and I really liked Catalina, and I wanted to know what was up. Again, I enjoyed it. It was good. My phone shut off, so I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was my kind of read. So that's it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read for the month of July. There was some books that I got to check off of my list, some anticipated reads that I got to read. Even though with the disappointments and everything, I'm just glad I got to ingest those books that I really wanted to read. You know, sometimes when you're disappointed with books, I don't know if this happens to you, you're disappointed with a book, but you're just happy that you read it because it was an anticipated read or you've been looking for it or looking forward to it for a while. Does anybody else feel like that? I feel accomplished in my reading life for July. I don't know. Let me know what books you read for the month of July. What was your favorite book? What was your most disappointed? Do you have a book that you just hated? Did you DNF anything? Let's talk books in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!